Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex Stevenson and Jake Face here. Welcome to this special middle of the week Mortarpod episode. Jake, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. So we're not going to have an episode this Sunday, so we thought it'd be cool to do a middle of the week show and do some M15 spoilers. As of yet, the entire set has not been spoiled, but we're not going to do every single card because it actually seems like there's quite a few reprints this time around. This is a special core set, though, with this new sort of holograph stamp that they're doing, presumably for copyright protection sort of thing. Is that the idea?
Yeah, it's to make it harder to
Counterfeit?
Duplicate it. Which is also the reason for the strange border at the bottom, or like the way that the black border goes around, and then the collecting numbers with the codes there are also part of the. I don't know. I guess if anybody's looking at one right now, or if we've got the first page up.
Yeah, we'll take a look when we get to the cards. But yeah, it does seem like the core sets are the time when they really change, when they do sort of like rules changes and stuff like that. They tend to wait until it's like core set time, and then they change the wording, change borders. So, I mean, we have to assume all future blocks are going to have this holographic stamp and new border
I would
and
think
stuff.
that this is like a from this point going forward thing.
Okay. So the last time we had a big change, I think, that was that significant was probably M10, when they changed combat damage on the stack, when they added blocking order, stuff like that.
Yep. That's probably the most significant rules change. They've done minor rules tweaks like the legendary rule that changed recently and stuff that. But other than that, yeah, the M10 one was the largest in recent history, I suppose.
So, all right. We don't have a ton of spoilers to go over, and let me sort of say we're not going to be doing every single new card from M15. This time we're just going to be really focusing on brand new spoilers of mythics and rares, since they're kind of the most exciting cards anyway. So we're going to be doing it in color order. We're just going to do white, blue, black, red, and green, and then artifact and lands. And that's going to be it for this episode. So let's jump right into the white rares and mythics. So we've got, let's just go left to right. Let's do this. We've got Ajani Steadfast, a brand new Ajani Planeswalker. And so this is the fourth iteration of Ajani. We still have to count the multicolor Ajani Vengeant as well. So Ajani Steadfast, he's a 4-mana Planeswalker, comes in with 4 loyalty, and he has +1 until end of turn. Up to 1 target creature gets +1/+1 and gains First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. -2, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each other Planeswalker you control. And then -7, you get an emblem with, if a source would deal damage to you or a Planeswalker you control, prevent all but 1 of that damage. So thing that sort of stands out as being the most significant on this card is the put a loyalty counter on each other Planeswalker you control.
Yeah. Like this. No, most of the time they don't interact with other Planeswalkers, actually. I can't think of one other than Nicol Bolas who can just outright destroy other Planeswalkers, and Vraska for that reason, or in that same way.
How many cards actually have mentioned loyalty counter before? Are there even other cards?
Well, Gideon, the other Gideon does mention it. And, I guess not specifically loyalty counters. I feel like there is another card that I am forgetting, but, anything like proliferate, stuff like that, also works well with loyalty counters. But no, Gideon is probably the first that specifically mentioned loyalty counters.
Okay. I like it. I think it's cool. It's very similar to a previous iteration of Ajani. The original Ajani had that -1, and it gives +1/+1 and gives vigilance, which arguably is better than this one's. But it's cool to see, yeah, a Planeswalker that's adding loyalty counters. I mean, this seems like the more fun Commander Ajani.
Yeah, I actually think, in Standard I was playing that Planeswalker control deck recently, and this would actually work there too, I think, mostly because you also have like Courser of Kruphix and Sylvan Caryatid in that style of deck. But putting more counters on Kiora to explore more, or, putting more counters on Elspeth to get to Ultimate, I feel like there are actually some standard ways to play this.
That being said, I don't see this card seeing a ton of play, but I think I could see a White Weenie list running it very easily for the -2. Putting a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control is pretty good, and getting the lifelink is very significant in some matches. But how would you say this Ajani stacks up to all other forms of Ajani?
I think Vengeant is still always going to be the strongest, just because he's a toolkit. But this one,
I think
it
it's
might.
worse than Goldmane, I think.
I think it is too, because Goldmane had 3 activations of Pump. This one requires you to have Planeswalkers in addition to creatures to really get the effect to be worth -2, in my opinion. The other thing about Goldmane was that it gave vigilance when you did that, and then he can ultimately give you a creature. So, not really. Like, it's probably above Mentor of Heroes, but below Goldmane.
I think I can agree with that. Next we have a return of Avacyn. Now this one really surprised me. We've got Avacyn Guardian Angel. So it was just interesting because, well, M15 in general is very strange because we've got this sort of callback to all the other planes, or not all of them, but a lot of the planes that we've previously...
The more recent ones,
yeah. So Avacyn Guardian Angel, maybe talk briefly about the previous Avacyn card. The previous Avacyn, I believe, was 9, or was it 10 mana? I think it was 9.
I think it actually was 8.
Oh, okay.
It was 5 and 3 white.
And it was a, was it a 5/5 flyer?
It was an 8/8 flying,
and it was
vigilant, indestructible.
Okay, and it was all your permanents are indestructible as well. So that card was really cool, and what was interesting about that Avacyn was it never saw any play anywhere in terms of constructed playability, but it always seemed to have like a really good value to it. You know what I mean? To set for selling purposes. I don't know what her value is now, but there was a time where she was just worth a ton of money, and it was sort of understood she was never going to see any constructed play.
Yeah,
so,
I'm pretty sure she's still worth money.
It was just very strange.
That's Commander for you, though.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Commander upping those values of weird cards like that, I guess. But Avacyn Guardian Angel is the new one to M15. It's 5 mana, 5/4 flying vigilance. It has 3 white sources in its casting cost as well. And then it has 1 and a white, prevent all damage that would be dealt to another target creature this turn by sources of the color of your choice. And then 7, prevent all damage that would be dealt to target player this turn by sources of the color of your choice. So we do definitely see a similar effect to, almost to like Iona, in that some decks are going to have a real hard time doing anything against this.
Yeah.
Like a red deck. Should be noted that it's prevent all damage that would be dealt to another target creature, so it cannot protect itself with its own activated ability, which I think is important. But it's also a 5 mana, 5 power flying vigilance, so that's definitely, a little bit closer to Baneslayer territory at that point.
That's what I was thinking too.
What do you think of her?
I think she's a cool commander. Mono white isn't typically a fun commander color though, but she does have a sweet set of abilities for commander.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I don't know. I'm not impressed, I guess. All I see is them tacking on abilities and not really putting a ton of
creativity into it.
Yeah, it's not like I'm not blown away by it. And either one of those abilities could have not cared about the color, you know? It could have just been prevent all damage, I guess. When you're paying 7 mana to prevent all damage that would be dealt to target player until end of turn, I feel like that's a ton of mana already that you're investing into it, you know? And they can kill Avacyn presumably out of anywhere, you know? I don't know. I'm not really that impressed with it.
Yeah, I don't think I am either. We've also got Soul of Theros next on the list here. So, Soul of Theros, 6 mana, 6/6 avatar creature. It's got Vigilance, and then it's got 6 mana. Creatures you control get +2/+2, gain first strike and lifelink until end of turn. And then 6 mana, exile it from your graveyard, and creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain first strike and lifelink until end of turn. So this is part of a cycle of soul creatures that are in each color and also connected to a plane from the past. So white got Theros, the most recent plane that we're currently at. And so this is sort of like the mythic creature spot from the core set, you know. In the past we had like Titan creatures. Now we're sort of doing this soul of a plane we visited creature. Is that right? Okay, so 6 mana, 6/6 Vigilance. That's pretty good. Giving your guys +2/+2 first strike and lifelink until end of turn, that's a real game flipper. So in terms of limited playability, this card is a monster. The fact that you get additional value out of your graveyard with it, like all the other soul cycle, is also very good. I don't think this is going to see any constructed play, but this is a very cool card for limited, definitely.
Yeah.
And possibly you could pretty easily toss in Commander as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, overall I'm kind of unimpressed with the souls actually. For like Commander or anything like that, but this one definitely takes the cake as far as which one I personally think is the best. Just because it being a vigilant 8/8 first strike lifelink guy, you know, that pumps your entire team too. With basically an upkeep of 6, you know, that's kind of how I look at it. And then he's always attacking for 8, and you're always gaining that 8 life, you know. I think he's just really strong. You'll see the other ones are just kind of, compared to this ability set, is
less interesting.
Yeah, right. Really, they didn't like push the boundaries with a mythic cycle, and it really actually upset me because they just don't feel, aside from this one, they don't feel like mythics, a lot of them.
All right. Well, we'll have to see that in a second here. Next, we've got Return to the Ranks, a white sorcery rare. It's 2 white and X, and it's got Convoke, which is a returning mechanic that's going to be featured in M15. And if you don't remember Convoke, it's your creatures can... Oh, wow, the wording they have now is very interesting. Your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting this spell pays for 1 colorless or 1 mana of that creature's color. I don't believe early Convoke had the word help in it, did it?
No, and actually this first sentence is literally just to, I think it's just to give you the most concise way to think about how to cast it or how it's working.
I see.
But yeah, I don't even think this was the most recent iteration of Convoke in the rules update that they had recently. But that's strange.
Yeah, that's it does. I mean, this is where core sets, once again, it's where they're trying to help new players as well. So they're trying to make it, they're ever on a quest to make it easier for new players to jump into the game. The inclusion of the word dies instead of put into the graveyard from the
Hmm.
battlefield, or from play as it previously was known. Even the battlefield dies. These are terms that are actually relatively new in terms of the scope of and length of Magic.
Hmm.
They're just a few years old, but they're just keywords that were made to make new players have an easier time knowing what's going on. But back to the card, Return to the Ranks. So it's got Convoke. It's 2 white and X sorcery. Return X target creature cards with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this one's kind of interesting. How similar is this to the card from Gatecrash that returns creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield with converted
Well,
mana?
it's much different, and I think this one is actually the better of the two
I see.
because it can get you
Two
any
and
number, yeah, and any variation on those. You can get as many as you want back, basically.
Okay.
I like that more, and the fact that it has Convoke lets you, possibly get it for even cheaper.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I don't know how to feel about this card. I always get worried with cards like this. This feels like a card that could be abused,
Hmm.
but it's just because I'm used to seeing 1,000 things come out of a graveyard with similar spells.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe this one's really not all that much to be concerned about.
I think sorcery speed keeps it in check. The fact that you can only target certain mana cost keeps it in check to a certain extent. There really aren't a ton of things that can make this go bonkers, I don't think.
Okay, at least not in standard, but
Yeah,
who knows when it comes to like legacy, you might come up with something crazy for this.
yeah. And the thing about it with Legacy, though, is that if you're playing any sort of res strategy, Reanimate's better. There's just strictly are better cards.
Yeah,
And
it
then
would
if
just have
you're-
to be some sort of combo-ish thing. That's it. It wouldn't be for like
Yeah.
a little bit extra value. But I mean, there's nothing off the top of my head that seems like you could break
I
it.
guess the reason I think that it's not breakable is in Legacy right now is because the best are like Fate's Reward and Second Sunrise, where you can just like
Returnable.
string, non-creature permanents too.
Yeah, that's
You know.
no, that's a good point. Okay, overall, I don't know exactly how to feel about that card. I don't think it's super limited playable. It's just a little bit too narrow for that. And then for constructed, you really have to design your deck to make it play for full value.
This card kind of makes me wonder, and along with the Convoke mechanic, I really am thinking that the next block is going to have a real emphasis on garnering an army, and like going as like many creatures as you can. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Having as many out as you can. There's a few enchantments in this set that we're not spoiling today, but that directly relate to you attacking with 2 or more creatures also. So keep an eye open for other things that keep people wanting to have like many, many creatures out. There's
Okay.
already a few like strange token indicators. We'll see some of the blue one or one of the blue ones. And yeah, I'm kind of analyzing these cards with the next block in mind too.
Okay. And last for the white rares we've got, or the new white rares, we've got Resolute Archangel. And this is a 5 and 2 white, 7 mana costing rare angel creature. It's a 4/4 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, if your life total is lower than your starting life total, it becomes your starting life total. So kind of a cool card. You as a res target, as a sideboard res target or something, bring your life total back up to 20 if you're getting burned out or something. But
Yeah.
overall, I think it's just a little bit too overcosted to be super amazing.
Yeah. It's it could be kind of cool in Legacy if you were also res alongside Grizzlebrand. You can do some cool things with it there.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Alternatively, like getting it back off of Reanimate and then putting your life total to 20 in Legacy after you've fetched and reanimated for 7, that's nothing to... need that either.
This seems similar to the card from Lorwyn, that when it comes in, if you have less than your or whatever opponent has the most.
It's whoever has the most, everyone's life becomes that.
Yeah, so it's a little bit similar to that. I see the differences, but
I actually like this one more because it's not universal, you know?
Just you, yeah.
Yeah, Arbiter has, there's a issue with making games go way too long with Arbiter of Null Ridge and Commander. Because once somebody plays one and it dies, it becomes everyone's favorite res target. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah, it just keeps going and everyone's back to 40 over and over again. I could see that being annoying. Actually, yeah, Resolute Archangel feels like it plays really well in Commander. I mean, if you're gaining, 35 life off of it or something, that would be really good. So I guess I do see the value of it for Commander, definitely. And it's also, I should mention, it's playable in Limited. It's just typically when you're playing 7 drops, you got to have a deck that's designed to get there a little bit quicker than normal, or a deck that can stall real well. Because getting to 7 mana is not something you can just toss in a deck and hope that it works, you know?
But if you do get to 7 with that card, it's pretty sweet because then everything that happened up to that point doesn't matter.
It's kind of negligible. That's true. All right, well, let's go to the blue rares. Let's start with Chasm Skulker. This is a 3-mana 1/1 Squid Horror. That is, Squid Horror. It's an interesting mashup. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and when it dies, put X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk onto the battlefield, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. So I see what's going on. Every turn it gets a little bit bigger, then it dies, spits out a bunch of land walking dudes. I kind of like it. Very much like it for Limited. In terms of constructed, I guess it's a 3-mana 1/1, so a little bit tough to use.
Not great. Yeah. I mean, Weight Crasher was something, but that at least became powerful the turn after you played it. I like this one. This is actually one of those cards that, kind of makes me think that the next set's going to be more about having a big army on board, because this is so out of character for blue.
Yeah. Yeah, this card's really weird. I mean, it's going to be a snap first pick in Limited, but it's just a little bit too bizarre to be played. A little bit too bizarre and slow to be constructed playable. I mean, if you have some way to draw like 10 cards in a turn, it gets huge out of nowhere. I also like that cards that would read like draw 3, discard 2 or something like that, or any sort of looter effect is going to work and be very beneficial with it. So there are at least plenty of synergies to make this card better.
Yeah.
But it does boil down to you're paying your initial 3 mana for a 1/1 when it first comes out. Not much else to say about it. I think it's pretty cool beyond that, though, at least flavorfully. Squid Horror.
Yeah, and I'm actually not a huge fan of Squid Horror, and I actually, my biggest problem is the art. Doesn't really look like a squid, you know. I can understand horror, but not getting the squid out of that.
Yeah, I guess the tentacles are a little bit too animal-like, I see.
Well, the mouth is in the front. The eyes are, like, attached to a skull. Everything about this doesn't make it look like a squid to me, you know.
I see.
It should have had something vaguely squid-like, you know. And you know the leech art from this set, that Merc Lurker or whatever?
Yeah.
That would have made more sense for this card, in my opinion.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about now. Yeah. Okay, next we've got Jalira or Jalira. I think Jalira probably. Master Polymorphist. So this is a 3 and a blue, so it's a 4-mana 2/2 human wizard legend creature. And then it has 2 and a blue, tap, sacrifice another creature, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So why do you think they did the random order on the bottom? They just really didn't want you to have to, if it was a bunch of cards, they don't want you to take the time to design your deck or anything like that.
It's because you can make a deck that only has legendary creatures in it, sack one, and then stack your deck if it wasn't random.
Oh,
Like
I
if it
see.
was put it on any order.
No, that makes sense. Okay, and then and the non-legendary creature card thing.
That's just so you don't hit another copy of her.
Jalira, yep, and that one absolutely makes sense because I
Yeah.
didn't actually read that the first time, the non-legendary, and I was like, this card's terrible. You can only run one in your deck, but they actually thought of that. So
Yeah.
I think one major issue is, though, a lot of times you want to be searching up your legendary creature, you know? Not your Jalira, but you want to be searching up your Gristlebrand, you want to be searching up your Iona.
So it might have actually just saved them problems with it in the future too by doing that, because you're right. I mean, I can see this being a problematic card in another way. Like in Commander, I could see it being a little bit more problematic if you're able to just get huge, like, outstanding creatures off of it every time.
Mm-hmm.
If you were Esper and you were just hitting, well, I mean, Gristlebrand's not allowed there, but if you were just hitting the really great legendary creatures like Iona and Linvala and like Sharoom and stuff like that, it would just be obnoxious.
Wait, is Gristlebrand banned?
It's banned, yeah,
Command? Oh, okay.
because your life total is 40.
That makes sense, yeah.
It's just too
You
good.
just draw like 28 cards or something.
Yeah,
ridiculous
like right off the bat.
Yeah.
Just be like,
Was that banned immediately when they...
Yeah, basically. It was basically banned right away.
Okay. But overall, I think Jalira is interesting. I mean, polymorph decks, historically, at least from my experience with them competitively, are pretty cool. Even when you lose against them, it does feel stupid, but I don't remember I don't ever remember being super butthurt about losing to polymorph.
They're cool to watch happen too, I think. I think that's the other thing, you know. I really actually like her card. I kind of wish it was blue and green. I wish that this could have been like the Simic Maze Runner, actually, instead of what Varel, you know?
Yeah.
This would have been a really sweet blue-green guy.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been cool, because then it would have kind of rewarded you for playing some green fatties or little green creatures to sacrifice, so either way.
Yeah. Actually, and that's a good point. You could play an evolve guy that was no longer relevant to hopefully find something that was going to evolve the guys that were still out. You know, like play it, sack it. But yeah, that's neither here nor there either. But
what's the? Is that a card on this card that I should know? That gator looks a little bit familiar, but maybe it's just a normal gator. I don't know.
I guess what it could be at least is a throwback to
Emperor Crocodile or something, or.
Well, there's Sandbar Crocodile.
Yeah, I think that's the one I was thinking of. The one with phasing or whatever.
Mm-hmm. It definitely has the same posture as it. But like both Illusions of Grandeur and the original Polymorph feature a rabbit on them. So that could be why the rabbit is being used here too.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, so it's like a little shout out, little throwback to that. That's cool. All right, moving on. We've got Master of Predicaments. This is a 5-mana, 4/4 flying Sphinx rare creature. And when it deals combat damage to a player, choose a card in your hand. That player guesses whether the card's convert mana cost is greater than 4. And if the player guessed wrong, you may cast the card without paying its mana cost. So choosing a card in your hand, I assume that means you have to set that card aside.
Yeah. With like large discard effects like Smallpox or something like that, where everybody does something at once, you pull your card aside and take it out of your hand and set it down to show that it's there before, and you start it if you cast Smallpox, and then your opponent does the same thing before you put it into the graveyard.
I see.
So it would be similar to that.
Okay.
You would choose the card, show that you've chosen it by setting it aside, and then in some way either holding it to the right or, like separate from your hand or whatever, but that would be what it is.
I think this card's really interesting, actually. I like this one a lot. I'm more interested in future effects similar to this. Like I was trying to come up with some sort of discard effect that had a similar idea to it. You know what I mean? Like your opponent chooses a card in their hand, and you guess whether it's for, or and then they discard it if you chose correctly or something like that.
Yeah. the cool thing about this is that you don't reveal it if they guessed wrong, or if they guessed right, you don't reveal it. So they never know what the card is that you want to cast,
That is
even
cool.
if they know what the that its casting cost is greater than 4 or not.
They don't even know that necessarily, though, right? Because you don't have to cast it if...
yeah, it's a May anyway, so you can always like fake them out with this card. It's a really... The more I think about it, at first I was kind of like, that card's okay. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's very riddly. It's really done well as far as the Sphinx and the predicament sort of thing
And
goes.
the whole riddle aspect of a Sphinx.
Yeah.
I like that.
Mhm.
So
I do like what they did here.
Yeah, I think the flavor kind of came through on this one, so that's
Mhm.
cool. I like its big, like, sphinxy cat paws,
Paws? I know. I thought the paws are sweet too.
Okay, not much else to say for that. I am interested in playing with that one unlimited, though. I was honestly waiting for an effect that was kind of like that, guessing something about a player's hand and then information being revealed. I like that.
Yeah, the guessing game is kind of a fun. It's a fun aspect.
It's like a mini game.
Hold on one second.
Next we've got Soul of Ravnica. Now this is the blue soul card. So Soul of Ravnica is 6 mana, 6/6 flyer. It has 7 mana, draw a card for each color among permanents you control, and 7 mana, exile Soul of Ravnica from your graveyard, draw a card for each color among permanents you control. So draw a card for each color among permanents you control. So does that mean if you had like a red-white creature or something, you would draw 2 cards for that permanent? Is that what it's trying to say? Or you can draw max... Oh, it is.
You can draw a maximum of 5 cards off of this effect, no matter how many permanents you control.
I see. Okay.
Because there's only 5 colors in Magic.
Now it makes sense. For some reason, the wording on it is like sort of kind of going around my head rather than in. But I think I do understand what it's trying to say now. So if you have like a multicolor permanent, you are drawing a card for each color that it is, but you cannot draw more.
Yeah, you'll always draw 1 because this is blue. And then you might draw more, if you're playing another color. Or 2.
So in that sense, even though you're right, this card is worse than the white soul creature, it is kind of flavorfully relevant to Ravnica in that was a set that rewarded you for being multicolor and being gilded and stuff like that.
It definitely fits what they're trying to do. I almost would have rather had this one be the Soul of Chandalar and give it something more... I think that the cycle would have been more beneficial if it was all creature-oriented, like how the Soul of Theros was. And it was actually about having kind of this army behind your back. But that's not really how they took it, and I just really don't like this one. I don't like the black one that much. The green one's okay, but I feel like the red one is forgettable too. We'll just have to look and see what all of them are. But at 7 mana to draw, like, in general, 2 cards, sometimes 3 or 4, and, like, very rarely 5, is not my idea of a good deal. But a 6/6 flyer for 6 is actually quite strong.
Mm-hmm. I think I can agree with that. In limited, it's still going to be a powerhouse bonkers
it's still
card.
going to kill people very quickly, and I get that.
I agree,
I'm overall disappointed.
Yeah,
with it.
On a scale of like, making it mythic, I don't think it doesn't really evoke mythic to me that well. All right, next and last for blue cards, we've got Mercurial Pretender. It's a 5 mana 0/0 shapeshifter rare creature, and you may have Mercurial Pretender enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature you control, except it gains 2 and 2 blue. Return this creature to its owner's hand. So almost identical to clone, except 1 more mana, and you can return it and then clone something else later. One big major glaring issue with this card, you can only hit creatures you control.
Mm-hmm.
So in that respect, I think they should have made it 4 mana. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is just like a retooled Sakashima the Imposter. I guess it does let you bounce it immediately, which Sakashima was you paid the bounce cost and then you waited till end of turn to get it back.
I see.
But Yeah, I mean, if they want to just keep reworking clone to get it to that perfect place, I think they're getting closer because bouncing it is really what you want to be doing.
It's also kind of weird. I'm not really into the whole, it's like one colored mana to play it, and then it's like two colored mana to really
To
take
activate.
advantage of the ability.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I guess I see what they're doing. They're like, hey, look, you can splash for it, and then it's kind of like clone. Or if you're deep blue, then it becomes a clone, plus you can bounce it and make it a better clone later.
Hmm.
So I guess that does make sense, but for some reason, just aesthetically, I've never really liked the one colored mana to cast it and then multiple colored mana to use an ability, especially
Yeah.
an ability that's not necessarily narrow, but not as debilitating as just bouncing it to play it again.
Hmm.
And it doesn't help that the picture on it is currently not available, or just some black and white weird image of a guy looking in a mirror, I think.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to black. We've got Cruel Sadist is a 1 mana 1/1
Hey,
rare.
I'll be right back, dude.
Okay, this is a rare 1 mana 1/1 human assassin creature, and then it's got 1 and tap, pay 1 life, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then it's got 2 and a black tap, remove X +1/+1 counters from it, and it deals X damage to target creature. So black assassins from the past, we know about cards like Royal Assassin, that tap and destroy a tapped creature. So now we've sort of got this. Well, there's a couple issues I have with this card. The 1 and tap and pay 1 life is quite a few things that you have to do to make this guy bigger. It is a 1-drop, so I kind of understand it, but I think it would have been okay being 1 black tap, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then the fact that you have to pay 2 and a black tap and remove the +1/+1 counters from it to deal damage to a creature. Overall, even though it is a 1-drop, I feel like it's quite a bit of work to actually get to the point where you can kill something. I mean, think about it this way. You pay a black and tap it, you pay a life, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So that's already another turn that whatever creature you want to kill is going to be attacking you. And then on top of that, you have to pay 2 and a black tap, remove the +1/+1 counter on it just to deal 1 damage to that creature. So it just feels a little bit slow. I could see it working very well if you had some way to put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it, but overall, I'm not. I was just saying I'm not super psyched about Cruel Sadist.
Hmm.
Even though it's a 1 mana 1/1, paying 1 black and tapping it and having to pay a life to make it bigger just seems too slow. It just,
Yeah.
even as a 1-drop, it just seems too slow. Like, what was the? Isn't there an artifact creature that was like you could pay 1 and tap it and give it a +1/+1 counter,
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Chronomaton or whatever.
and that was
Chronomaton.
colorless?
Yeah, and it was really good.
Yeah.
And I think this works along the same lines, and you're right, it's not the same. Um, the thing about Chronomaton was that you always just wound it up to like 5 or 6 and then just started beating with it, you know?
hmm
And then up to that point, it could always just block.
But yeah, and think about this one. You get this thing to a 5/5. You've paid 4 life, so there's a fifth of your life is already gone
Uh-huh.
just to invest to make it big. And then on top of that, if you want to remove something, you basically you have to do all that work and turns that you put into it, invested
Yeah.
into it. You have to take it away, and I mean, you still paid your 4 life, and it's just to deal 4 damage to a creature. So I feel like there's just too many requirements. It's kind
No,
of
I
like
agree.
it's
I
like
think,
the Eater of Hope syndrome, you know?
yeah, I think that they overworked this. This was designed by somebody too, which is not, I don't want to dog on anybody, but, you know, I think that the paying 1 life is really the aspect of this where it becomes too much, you
hmm
know, and they probably could have like saved themselves a lot of trouble if this ability was just 1 black tap and no life payment to put a counter on it, and then this ability to kill was actually 3 black mana tap and remove. You know,
Yeah.
like let's focus
On the color, yeah.
on the color instead of focusing on paying life for a card that was printed at uncommon, and yeah, it's an enchant or an artifact and a creature, so it's hit by more removal, but at the same time,
You can play it in a deck.
anywhere, yeah. And so a blue deck that just has a guy that sits out there and blocks until they're ready to start going is like incredible. And this card, I don't know, this card is not that great.
No, it really isn't.
And actually, considering that they printed Ulcerate in this set too, which is, and I know we don't have it here, but it's a 1 black instant. Target creature gets -3/-3, and you lose 3 life. I feel like your opponent playing that against you would be happy if it meant that they were killing your creature, you had paid 2 life, or even the 3rd life. If you were on the 3rd life payment, they invested the 1 card and the 1 mana to kill your 1 mana, that 4 mana investment, I guess, and 3 life investment. I don't know.
It's true.
I'm
not sold on Cruel Sadist. I think it was, like you said, overworked. Let's go on to the next one. It's got kind of a crude picture, but it looks like it's going to be a promo card of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
We've got In Garrick's Wake. So this is a 9 mana rare sorcery card in black, and it's destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. So this is sort of the new Plague Winds, I'm assuming,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is it the same mana cost?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so
9
same
mana.
mana cost, but now it hits planeswalkers in addition. That's cool. I'm actually down with, this obviously immediately a commander staple.
Mm-hmm.
Just right off the bat. Excellent commander.
Yeah,
Plague Winds already was, so
Yeah.
this
This
is
is like incredible.
the strict upgrade. I like it. In terms of constructed playability, not so much. Typically 8 and 9 mana spells are reserved for I don't know, a bomb
Game
that
ending,
immediately
yeah.
ends the game or something.
Omniscience into something.
Yeah. And no one ever even really played Omniscience that much either.
No.
But this card's definitely cool for Commander, and I think that's about as far as you're gonna see it. And I don't know, I guess it's kind of cool to see like a homage to Plague Winds,
Yeah.
or at least an update. How are you with the flavor and the name In Garrick's Wake? Obviously referring to Garrick Wildspeaker.
I don't know. The name's kind of blah. I like what they're trying to do with the flavor of it, but you were telling me that Garrick just killed everything except my stuff, I guess. Like he's supposed to be tormented and like cursed. You would think that he would just be going crazy.
Destroying everything.
Yeah,
I
but
see.
that's fine. I do like it. I really do like it because it's about Garrick going bad. I just don't like the name. I wish it was something else,
Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on. We've got Indulgent Tormentor. This is a 5 mana 5/3 flying rare demon, and this one says D15, so I'm assuming this was this was spoiled from the Duels of the Planeswalkers game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 5 mana 5/3 flying demon. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can draw a card unless target opponent sacks a creature or pays 3 life. So in terms of stacking up to Bloodgift Demon, I would say it's strictly worse. But that might not be right, because Bloodgift Demon is a 5 mana 5/4 flying demon, and then at the beginning of your upkeep you choose a player and they lose 1 life and draw a card. So I still think I like Bloodgift Demon more, because you're the one that gets to decide, whereas this one your opponent does get to make the decision ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only upside to this though is that you're always going to reap the benefit of it, whereas
true.
with Bloodgift Demon, if you were ever at 1 life or dangerously
You have
low,
to make your opponent
Yeah.
do it.
and
That's true.
That's not a good point either.
Both are limited bombs. Let me say that right away. But which one do I like more for constructed? I don't know. I guess you raised a pretty good point there. Either way, it's a good option. And paying 3 life is significant. Sacking a creature is not always significant if they have a lot to sack. But
Yeah.
I mean,
if
it's still
the card, it depends. If that card is going to do the same thing for you as make them get rid of a creature or they lose 3 life or work that same strategy, then it's, I think, much better.
good. Okay.
I guess it really depends. on what your opponent is running. If they're weenie, then this card is going to be much like what's its name, Desecration. You know, it's just not going to
Not enough.
have a lot of wheels under it, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
feet under it.
I like it though. I do think it's still very good, very efficiently costed. I mean, we're just seeing ridiculously efficient black creatures nowadays. We got Master of the Feast, 3 mana 5/5 flying demon. Now we've got 5 mana 5/3 flying demons. I mean, demons historically have been undercosted, high power stuff with drawbacks, and in this case, it's not even a drawback. It's just pure benefit. So
Yeah.
that is good.
This one is a really strange one in that there is no drawback. Even when they are denying you the card, they're still
Losing
you're
something.
still getting something.
That's
yeah.
true. Desecration Demon technically did have a drawback, even though both modes were good. Them sacking a creature and making it bigger, or not sacking a creature and it not tapping. There was still that element of your opponent can tactically tap down your Desecration Demon to get in with their army. So this not having a downside is actually very significant. Next we've got Obnixilis Unshackled. So this is another sort of callback to an old mythic from Zendikar, Obnixilis, who was a very cool card that just really ultimately never saw much play. But let's see what this new one does. We've got a 6 mana 4/4 flying trample rare demon. Whenever an opponent searches his or her library, that player sacks a creature and loses 10 life. And then whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Obnixilis Unshackled. So it's constantly getting bigger as things are dying and punishing your opponent for searching their library. So I guess I would have liked to have seen some sort of beneficial effect that gave your opponent the opportunity to search their library for something. You know what I mean? Like your opponent can basically demonic tutor, but then it still has that whenever an opponent searches clause on it. That would have been kind of a cooler, cooler word interaction.
Exactly. Like pay 5 mana, search your library for any card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Only your opponents can activate this ability. Something like that would have been cool on it.
Yeah.
Because even then, if you're going to get something, it's like, well, screw you. You know, like
you still get punished. They still get punished hard.
Yeah, a huge amount of life, and you get rid of a creature and pump my god. I'm just not impressed with this guy either. I feel like a lot of these cards that are designed by people, they kept them really true to their form in an attempt to like let them be designed by those people, and they just come up a little short as far as
it's kind of a non-synergistic. I don't know. It's not that either ability is bad because they're both good, but neither of them. I don't see any sort of relationship between them.
Yeah, like he would make more sense to have flash than flying, or you know what I mean, like because then at least you can get the aha factor on your opponent doing something to search their library.
Yeah,
this one it just is like I don't know. I'm really disappointed with this one, considering that he's such a shift from the original Obnixilis that he didn't really go anywhere cooler than the original Obnixilis.
Yeah, he didn't translate well to.
Yeah, I mean, this is still somebody who's on Zendikar, but he really has nothing against. I mean, this could, I don't know. I guess if fetch lands come out in the next set, then yes, he's much better. But by how much on turn 6?
I see.
You know what I mean?
No, that's actually a relevant point, though, for fetch lands and such.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's like the one situation where he gets better in standard at least.
No, that's true. All right, Waste Not is actually one of the earliest spoilers from M15. And a lot of people are excited about this. Me, not as much as other people, but I'm not a big Legacy player, so maybe you Legacy players out there know a lot more than I do. But I can only do it based on my experience with cards that are similar to this. So, Waste Not, 2 mana, black enchantment, rare. Whenever an opponent discards a creature card, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, you get 2 black mana added to your mana pool. And then whenever an opponent discards a non-creature, non-land card, draw a card. So people were really excited about this card. My issue is cards that are the most similar to this, which would be like Liliana's Caress, Megrim, historic similar cards, just never made their way into Constructed. And the main hurdle of these cards is that they require other cards to even begin giving you value. So Waste Not literally does nothing if you do not have some way to force them to discard. So,
well, and the other problem
issue.
with a discard deck is that your opponent can always play around it by playing out their hand, playing any of the little piddly shit they can just so that there's nothing left to discard.
True. So there's just going to be straight up times where this does nothing. You play your Waste Not, you untap, take your next turn. Okay, you don't have a discard effect, so Waste Not does nothing. Your opponent doesn't have any cards left in their hand, as you mentioned. Waste Not does nothing. So that's kind of my issue with it. People have been saying some sort of, legacy smallpox or pox deck of some sort. I understand. I see it. I understand. Hymn to Torak is a card highly played in Legacy, so I get it. Waste Not in Legacy, I could see it in some sort of deck. Personally, I'm not sold on it. I think it's a very cool card. I love the way that it's designed, where you're always getting some sort of value from them discarding. But in terms of being a very good constructed card, I'm not convinced yet. I'm gonna have to see it played.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, next we've got Soul of Innistrad. So this is continuing the Soul cycle of Mythics. It's a 6-mana 6/6 Death Touch. It has a 5-mana activated ability, return up to 3 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. And then it's got a 5-mana, another one at 5 mana. Exile it from your graveyard, return up to 3 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So returning 3 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand is pretty relevant. 6/6 Death Touch is pretty fat. Still not evoking Mythic very much, though. I guess I've got to agree with you on that.
This should have been like 6 or 7 mana to res a guy from the graveyard. Like those abilities. It should have just been put one from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control.
Is there...
Considering...
I was just going to say, is there a specific relationship between this whole return up to 3 target creature cards and Innistrad? Is something I'm missing here?
No. I mean, nothing that wouldn't be fixed by doing full-on res it, That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm just talking like the plane of Innistrad. Like with the Ravnik...
There's a lot of dead people on Innistrad and graveyards and stuff like that. So to just do a raise dead or to do, triple raise dead versus rise from the grave, in my opinion, it's like, I don't know. I think that the triple raise dead is actually much worse than just doing rise from the grave.
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree with that. Overall, just unexciting. Once again, you're right. This the Black Soul myth, it just doesn't feel mythic.
Yeah, and then Death Touch always on a huge power guy seems so worthless.
Yeah, you're right.
There's the instance where they block with like 3 2/4s or whatever, where you actually do get to kill all 3 of them, and hooray, you did it. But those times come up so few and far between that it just isn't really a huge issue.
No, it's true. Fatties with Death Touch, it just doesn't make sense. It's all about the 1 power Death Touch.
And I think part of the reason this cycle just makes me so upset is that the Titan cycle was just so much further ahead of this cycle for a Mythic cycle that it's just bizarre that they would even print these, that they're even like feeling okay printing these.
Yeah. It's true. It's like they're on a power regression.
But on the wrong cards, in my opinion. Like, don't tone down the mythics that aren't even going to be players in Standard, in my opinion. Like, if you had made the cost 7 mana to return a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield under your control on this guy, it would have been fine. I don't think anyone would have complained too much about it. Sheldred was your opponent sacks a creature during their upkeep. You res a guy during your upkeep for free. And it was Swamp Walk 6/6, So, like, comparing it to previous things, and that's all we have to do is compare it to things we've seen before and seen them do. It just really falls short of their previous things.
True. I think the one thing we need to mention, though, is core sets, typically the overall power level of rares and mythics is supposed to be or is historically significantly less than the blocks.
Yeah. And these are in general kind of like supposed to sum up the colors so that everybody can just understand what Magic is. So to an extent, I understand it, but I always am just going to say this. I don't understand why this couldn't have been Rezagai straight up, because how is that not within Black's realm? Why wouldn't that be a fine thing on this? And
would have been more
blah, blah, blah.
appropriate with the mythic.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I mean, I feel like that white one just goes beyond all of the other ones in scope, and it literally fights them all. You block, you block with the Death Touch one on that white one, and you just give it first strike, lifelink, and whatever,
That's
and
true.
+2/+2 until end of turn.
Death Touch don't do nothing.
No, so I guess you're happy that you have an exile effect when your white guy kills this guy.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the red rares here. We've got Aggressive Mining, 4 mana enchantment. You can't play lands, and then it's sacrifice the land, draw 2 cards, activate this ability only once each turn. I actually kind of like this card. This card's cool for red.
I really like this card too.
This card actually makes sense for red. You can't play further lands, so you can only get as much value as you currently have, and you can only use it once a turn to get 2 cards. So actually, I'm very interested in this card. I'm very curious if this is going to see some real sideboard play. You know what I mean? For like a red deck or something.
Yeah, I mean, this could just be... Yeah. Do you think it's only sideboard for a red deck?
I don't know.
2 of in a red deck, I feel like it wouldn't even be that bad.
I really don't know. I can't quite wrap my mind around it yet. I'm going to have to sit on it and see it play.
You really need a way to get rid of enchantments yourself, though, or like a way to get rid of it yourself.
I think that's the danger red aspect of it, though.
And that is what red doesn't have. So it's interesting. I like it. I personally really like it.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
And
I'm
I
interested.
think that this is a great card for like a Zedru EDH deck. Just give it to your opponent.
Yeah, I like that. That's true. Trade that permanent away.
Yeah.
Okay. Burning Anger is the next one. We've got a 5 mana aura. Enchanted creature has tap. This creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. I like this card a lot for limited. It is an aura. That's 5 mana. We're just coming off of Theros, so I feel like people are still going to be very apt, very antsy to play more auras. You know what I mean? Theros block was so much reward and upside for playing auras that I think it's going to take people a little time to realize, oh, wait a second, that's right. Most of the time, playing auras is very dangerous. You can get yourself 2 for 1. So this card is no exception to that, but put this on a fatty, or put this on a Death Toucher, a small little Death Toucher, and that thing's just a little killer. So
yeah,
I think it's very cool. I think this could easily be a first pick, even though it's an aura. I think that effect is so game-changing in limited.
It's pretty much game-ending on the right creature,
Definitely. Any sort of hex-proof dude, you're looking real good. I mean, even if it's on a 2-power guy, just shocking something every turn, very powerful. So very cool effect, and it does seem appropriate on an aura, so I like it. Goblin Kaboomist is next. Very interesting name, Kaboomist. 2 mana, 1/2 Goblin Warrior, rare. And at the beginning of your upkeep, put a colorless artifact token named Landmine onto the battlefield with red. Sack this artifact. This artifact deals 2 damage to target attacking creature without flying. Then flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Goblin Kaboomist deals 2 damage to itself. I actually really like this card a lot. I think this card is fantastic for limited, and I think it's going to see a lot of play there. Beyond that, maybe sideboard and constructed if Goblin become a theme of some sort. But the thing that I think makes it so good is you just slowly build up these landmines, and if you lose your Kaboomist, you're not losing your landmines.
Landmines, yeah.
So I like that. I do like that aspect of it. It's like you're getting permanent, you're getting permanents that deal damage to things every
Yeah.
turn for a very cheap cost.
I see. Okay, so I guess I misunderstood how the ability worked. I thought that sacrificing it and flipping a coin was all part of the ability on the artifact, but it's actually part of the upkeep ability. So after you get the token, then you flip a coin.
Oh, I see. Well, I think I might have misinterpreted it too then. So every upkeep you have to flip a coin.
Yeah,
I
you
see.
always get a landmine first, and then you flip a coin.
Okay, well then it's not as good as I just said, but I still think it's definitely playable and limited
Yeah.
because you're at least getting a artifact that can deal some damage to a creature without
Mhm.
flying.
The other thing about it though is you just would have to raise its toughness to 3, after one turn.
That's true.
You'd have to win one flip and then raise its toughness to 3 or more, and it would be back. It'd be fine.
But yeah, okay, so that was a good thing to draw attention to, definitely. It's not as good as I initially thought. I definitely was under the impression that you were using the landmine before
Yeah.
you flipped the coin, which
Mm.
actually for some reason just made more intuitive sense to me. But
Yeah.
what you just said is actually right. You're putting out the token
My
and then you're flipping.
Yeah, my guess flavor-wise is that he plants one and then he's readying the second one. And this, if he, like in true Goblin way, would, he could possibly have that one just blow up in his face.
Yeah.
The one he's readying. You know?
So a little bit less exciting than my first impression of it, but still a pretty cool card and cheap enough where I could see it. I don't like the 1-2 aspect of it very much, but that's okay. Not a huge deal.
Yeah, at least that makes him easier to get above or like out of range of his own shock.
I would have liked him to be a 2-2 though, but that's okay. At rare,
true.
at rare, just make him a little 2-2.
Yeah.
But that's
And
okay.
he's a warrior.
Yeah. What kind of warrior is that?
Yeah.
So next we've got Goblin Rabble Master. This one's actually very cool. I like this card a lot. So this is 2 and a red, 2/2, rare Goblin Warrior creature. Other Goblin creatures you control attack each turn if able, and then at the beginning of combat on your turn, note combat, not pre-combat main phase, nothing like that, combat. Put a 1/1 red Goblin creature token with haste onto the battlefield, and then whenever Goblin Rabble Master attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking Goblin. So you and I had talked a little bit that it's kind of a mashup between whatever that card was from Shards at Rare and Goblin Pile Driver, Goblin Assault and Goblin Pile Driver.
Assault. Yeah.
Which is cool.
And
that's a good
yeah,
mashup.
I think this is a good mashup. Yeah. I think that this is the right way to do something like that.
This is a powerful card. I think this is a very powerful card. If you have, if you're against the right deck and you're just sort of, I guess it's got the suicide aspect to it because you do have to attack with other Goblin creatures you control. But I don't know. At least you don't have to attack with the Rabble Master, so he's still spitting guys out every turn, regardless of whether you're attacking with him or not. And
Go on.
I was just gonna say if you have burn to back it up, it's getting in there just a couple times is gonna add up huge.
Yeah, I do really like him. The issue, of course, with token generation is that sometimes the reason you have token generation is so that you can just chump with it, and this guy unfortunately doesn't allow for that. But
True.
other than that, that's like my only complaint with it. But it's a red card,
Yeah,
and
so it makes sense in red.
yeah, and he gets in for bigger because of that guy. This is kind of the way I would personally like Lords to be, a little more indicative of what their tribe is and a little more reliant on you having the guys out, not just giving the boost to all your guys,
Yeah. Yeah, and even making the dudes is very cool, especially for red creatures. We don't have, there's just not a ton of red creatures that make creatures that I can think of. Red gets
it gets it, but yeah.
It's usually is like a sacrifice thing though to get stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like Rockamar just poops them out, and I'm
I
trying
guess
to
that's
think
true.
of other ones
Yeah.
that do, but they're like Jund Battlemate or whatever it was that, you know, it pooped out Sapperling tokens. So there are red tokens that will just produce a token, but in like most of the time when it's goblin creation, then yeah, they want you to sacrifice a goblin or do something to give them the resources to create goblins.
Moving on, we've got the Soul of Chandelar. So this is continuing the soul cycle. 6 mana, 6/6 first strike avatar creature. It has a 5 mana activated ability, deals 3 damage to target player and 3 damage to up to 1 target creature that player controls. And then 5 mana exiled from the graveyard does the same thing. So I think you're right. Still doesn't feel very mythic, but that ability at least is pretty
Yeah.
powerful.
This one we're actually working to a place where I feel more comfortable with it. At
Yeah.
least this card, with its ability, can kill the white
9.
one with its ability.
You can kill a 9 toughness
Yeah.
creature, so that is pretty
Before
big.
they even get the chance to hit it. So
Mhm.
I personally am all about this one too. I still would have liked to see some consistency with the abilities, you know, and have them. If you're gonna have it be such a tight cycle where they have one bait like evergreen keyword, a 6 mana cost, and 6/6, you know, then like have some consistency with those abilities and make them seem like they're. If you're gonna do the 3 thing, then do the 3 thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just it bugs me because they're all kind of in different places
True.
and you're not quite sure where they want to be.
There's this inconsistencies, definitely.
Yeah.
Not only
Yeah.
in power level, but in the wording and actual mechanics of the card.
Mm-hmm.
So that is true. But so far this is the second most powerful one we've looked
Yeah.
at, definitely.
And I also feel like the last ability, the exile thing, I think that should have been like double the effect of when it was on the board. You know what I mean?
Since it's a one-time thing.
Yeah, and it can cost like twice as much or whatever. It can cost, you know what I mean? But yeah, I just felt like this cycle, it was so close to getting somewhere, but it just didn't achieve it. And yeah, overall, I'm just kind of humdrum by it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely, as per usual.
It'll
this
be
is
very good limited, though.
Yeah, this thing is gonna make you. I see sometimes I'm gonna get really frustrated playing against Soul of
hate
Chandelar.
this card in limited.
Yeah, this is such a debilitating card in limited.
Well,
Okay.
and think of the double block, triple block scenario, quadruple block, where you actually think you're going to kill it and you forget that it has the ability to just nuke one of your guys out of nowhere too.
And the first strike, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I could see this one really ruining days.
Yeah, no kidding. This is a real limited bomb for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Next we've got Siege Dragon. This is a 7 mana 5/5 rare flying dragon. When it enters the battlefield, destroy all walls your opponent controls. And then when it attacks, if your opponent controls no walls, it deals 5 damage to each creature without flying, defending player controls. I actually like this one flavorfully. I like the idea of what it's trying to do. That being said, it does seem like a bit of a narrow ability, destroy all walls your opponent controls. And it also seems very similar to Balefire Dragon.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard to when you say that, that's actually funny because it's actually better than Balefire Dragon in my opinion because you don't even have to connect. You just get the effect when it attacks. And walls are
Pretty rare.
They're probably going to be in the next block, but in this limited, if it's one per color at common even,
Yeah.
which I don't think it is, I think they're at uncommon, then it's like, you know, they're still not going to show up that often. And to have it come out and then destroy all the walls in the first place.
Makes them pointless.
Yeah. So it's a cool card. I like it. But I think that destroy all walls maybe shouldn't have been in there because I do think they also put destroy target wall for 1 red in this set.
Jeez.
Yeah, so they
Anti-wall
actually,
again.
yeah, which is fine. Red can destroy defenders for sure, but you know the dragon having to do it just doesn't make a lot of sense when that ability is already going to just obliterate some people.
I can't wait. I can't wait for my opponent to play Siege Dragon and then I play a wall the following turn.
Yeah, but even, I mean, unless it's a reach wall with six toughness, it's not going to save you.
Yeah, that's true. But at least he's not dealing 5 damage to... I mean, let's face it, once he attacks and he deals 5 damage to each creature without flying, you control...
Yeah, is this the game over? Like, how
It's
is that
game
not
over.
a mythic? How is this one, like, not a mythic?
Balefire definitely was, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think Balefire costs one more. I feel like Balefire was
No.
an 8 mana 6/6.
Was it? Maybe you're right, but I thought it was 7.
I have to look it up now.
Yeah, but regardless, this card's... I mean, it's funny. I understand what it's saying. Destroys the walls, so then it can deal the damage to all the creatures. So,
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense in that respect. In terms of being a slam first pick, I think it actually still is. Despite being 7 mana, that effect is just so powerful.
Yeah, I think that's like a huge...
It's just two game flipping.
Yeah.
Okay, finally moving on to green, we've got Genesis Hydra, 2 green and X plant Hydra rare creature. When you cast it, reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put a non-land permanent card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield, then shuffle the rest of your library, and it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. So it's a mashup of all the Hydra creatures and a Genesis Wave, but unlike Genesis Wave, you only get
One of the cards off
one of the
that.
cards. So what do you think about this guy?
It's cool. I'm trying to decide, like, about the art, if something is emerging from, like, I'm going to play art director. If it was me, I would have had it be where these were like vines. The heads were more like vines with like flowers coming off. And then out of the center, it was actually like something emerging from like a cocoon or something, you know, like to make it more like Genesis, you know. But I'm not. And here we are left with whatever this is.
Yeah.
It looks like
Feed me
Venus
Seymour.
flytrap. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. It looks like Little Shop of Horrors gone totally
With a bunch of heads on it,
bananas.
yeah.
Yeah.
Has it got like a spider crawling on it?
See, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if it was generating a spider, and that's where the Genesis is.
There's also
And
like a
see,
hand coming out of the ground, which is strange.
that's just a dead person. You can see skulls down there too.
Okay. So it's not like a person rising or anything like that?
I would think that they would have to focus more on it if they were going to do that. Like I could see the spider being more likely what it's generating.
I see.
But that's kind of why I would have liked it to be more like it's a plant hydra. So I would have liked it to be more like foliage based so that things could actually hide in and come out of it. You know?
Mm-hmm. So cool card. I like it.
Yeah.
Very playable and limited. Is it going to
is a
see
cool
constructed play? I don't know. Possibly.
Doubt it.
I think you're right. I think
Genesis Wave was really good because of elves, but this card is not Genesis Wave.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this card plays very poorly with itself.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks.
Well, wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, because you don't want like a ton of, like you don't want a Genesis Hydra and then the only the only non-land permanent card you hit is your other Genesis Hydra.
Yeah.
That sucks. So what did I just play for it? What did I jam 4 of these for?
Yeah, I think it's a one of, you know, and then it can actually rebuild your board pretty well at 5 mana. You can get like a 5/5 and then maybe a Planeswalker off of it in the right deck or something like that.
That's true.
I could see it being okay as a one of. Actually, with Elspeth in the deck at 6 mana or like at 8 mana as a recovery spell, this would be amazing if you hit an Elspeth.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, you're getting a fat creature out of it too. It's okay.
Yeah, I by no means am saying this is like going to appear in standard.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I'm not sold on it. I think it's cool though. Next we've got Nissa Worldwaker. This is kind of an exciting planeswalker. So we haven't seen Nissa since Nissa Ravane in all the way back in Zendikar once again. So this one is a 5 mana, 3 loyalty planeswalker. It has +1. Target land you control becomes a 4/4 elemental creature with trample. It's still a land. +1, untap up to 4 target forests. And then -7, search your library for any number of basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. Those lands become 4/4 elemental creatures with trample. They're still lands. First and most importantly about this planeswalker, it protects itself.
Hmm.
I love planeswalkers that protect themselves. That is a plus star in my book. Um, the 4/4 elemental creature with trample that you get it permanently. It does not go away. That is a 4/4 elemental creature with trample permanently. It's very strong. Nothing to scoff at there. Untapping up to 4 target forests. I mean, you play this, you untap 4 lands. It's like Nissa cost 1 mana, right?
Hmm.
Both of those seem phenomenally good to me. Um,
Yeah, I like that too.
One minor nitpick, I guess it's 5 mana and it only comes in with 3 loyalty, but keep in mind it's gonna go up to 4. So it's really like you're getting, it's not like a little burn spell is gonna be able to take it out,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I think overall I like it. I like it as a mono green planeswalker because it definitely exemplifies both aspects of green creatures and lands, you know.
Hmm.
Those are the two things that we care about.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Garrick Wildspeaker actually in
Yeah.
that it has a very good balance of I'm a green, I am green, you know, like
Hmm.
I'm just a green planeswalker. And I like the direction of taking her away from elf tribal, you know, which was cool at the time because they had a lot of support for it. But
Too narrow. Ultimately,
I think, yeah,
much too narrow.
and a lot of people didn't like her as a planeswalker because of it.
Yeah.
When
I don't want to
you
play
know,
Nissa's Chosen.
yeah, exactly. And then it was like, what is the right amount? It's like 3 Nissas and then 2 Nissas chosen. You know,
Yeah.
ended up
Yeah,
being like what you played.
that's always ugly too. You don't want to
Yeah,
have to do a balancing act in your deck just for one card.
yeah, and it's like this is my planeswalker. I can't commit to 4 of it without committing to at least 3 of the other one. You know,
True.
so
That
so
that was a mistake with Nissa, and
yeah,
this one does seem to be a lot more of a much more attractive option.
yeah. I think that I'm always happy for them to try out those new areas and explore that. You know, Nissa's chosen, and that idea was not bad. You know, it just it was so it was parasitic. You know, that was the problem with
Hmm.
it. It was too reliant on itself and each other to get it going. But it wasn't bad to see it. You know, we all had to see it to make sure that it wasn't going to work
Yeah, we didn't
in the
know.
future. But
Totally.
yeah, but I like this one even more.
Yes. This is
His
going to see
world
constructed. I'm calling it. This one's going to
is.
see constructed play, I think.
I'm wondering if her name is like a reference to the fact that she actually did wake up the world and started like the Eldrazi brood at least from or release the
Hmm.
Eldrazi brood.
Maybe. It's nice to see the Hedron in the background of her picture.
Hmm.
Couple Hedrons, actually. So
Yeah.
that's cool. I like her. I'm calling it right now, everybody. This is going to see some play. Definitely. I think she's cool. She's
Hmm.
definitely good enough. The untapped for Forest is, to me, is very, very
Yeah,
attractive
that's really
option.
good.
Okay.
And actually, right now, while we've got Return to Ravnica block in standard, yeah,
Yeah.
and you can actually use it on dual lands.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we've got Phyto Titan next. It's a 6 mana 7/2 plant elemental rare creature. When it dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of his or her next upkeep. So cool card. We've seen some similar stuff to this, I'm
Hmm.
sure, from the past. Something that dies and comes back. I feel like there's something in black that does it, but I can't exactly think of what it is. There was something in Vintage Masters that I played against too that had a very similar effect to this. I just can't remember what it was. Maybe it was in green, and it was like, oh, that's what it was. It was a 6/1 Shroud.
Oh, yeah, Gigapede, where you have to discard to put it back into your hand. Yeah. And
Okay.
they've done effects where you've like gotten them back at your upkeep if you did something before, but I don't think they've ever done it where just whenever it dies, you just always get it back.
Okay. That's cool then. It
Yeah.
returns tapped. Keep that in mind so it's not as sexy as you might initially think. You don't get
Hmm.
it just dies, comes back, and it can block again or something. So in that respect, perhaps a little bit slow. It's also 6
Yeah.
mana in green that has 2 toughness, which is always kind of a no-no.
Yeah.
When it comes to green inefficiency in creatures, you never like to see that because green are supposed to be the creme de la creme of creatures.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand why they wanted to give it low toughness, but then the flavor text kind of like betrays that. It should have been flipped the other way. Its root system spans the entire floor of the jungle, making eradication impossible. So shouldn't it be a 2/7 that never dies?
Yeah, but then it's
Hard to kill in the first place.
yeah.
I guess I don't know. I think in theory this card is cool. I think that if it came back untapped, it would have been a lot cooler, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I see this card actually not being as awesome as you want it to be.
Yeah, because of the tapped, it's just a little bit slow. But it's a 7 power creature. You know, I want to try it out at least. But I think you're right. It's not as
You know
not
what
as
is
good as
good
it looks.
with is the red aura that deals damage equal to power.
Oh yeah, that's true. Very good point. That's a 3-turn clock. I like that. Okay. Next is Yisan the Wanderer Bard. It's a 3-mana, 2/3 human rogue rare creature, legend. And then it's got an activated ability, 2 and a green, tap, put a verse counter on Yisan. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to the number of verse counters on Yisan and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. This guy seems really cool. So he just keeps... This guy seems great. He just keeps spitting guys out. He's almost like a birthing pod for... like on his own or something.
He's very similar to like Hibernation's End.
He's very slow. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But
I could see him being
very
good
cool.
if you had like a way to proliferate every turn, and then you can just skip certain points on the scale.
Seems like a fantastic commander card. I would love to design a deck with this guy in mind as my commander.
I think that he becomes like your first everybody's first target, and then you probably don't really want to include creatures with like 7 converted mana cost, or higher than 7. Yeah, and I mean you can put him in there, your mono green anyway, but don't plan on getting him out off of this ability, I guess.
I'm gonna keep my eyes open on this card, and I think this one's got some real potential. I don't know yet about constructed necessarily, but even the 2/3 on it is nice. I don't know. Something about it seems very good. It is slow. I mean, it's not like a quick card, but I'm not saying it's breakable. I'm just saying it could be a good...
It's cool.
It could be
really
a good...
cool.
Yeah, just searching up and putting them on the battlefield. I mean, that's hard to argue with. It's just giving you free cards every turn, so I like it. Especially think about like into the battlefield effects. That would be really interesting. Just something that comes in, maybe even draws you a card. I like that it's not restricted to like green creatures. So it's like I'm not even playing blue, but I'm gonna search up, you know, my Mull Drifter or something like that.
Oh yeah, that'd be really great.
You know, just something like that. So I think it's cool. I like it. Next we have Soul of Zendikar. So this actually is not the last of the Soul Cycle. We're going to see one in the artifacts, but this is a 6-mana 6/6 Reach Avatar creature, mythic. 5 mana activated ability, put a 3/3 green beast creature token onto the battlefield, and then 5 mana exile from a graveyard to get the beast as well. So this one still seems pretty good. I mean, spitting out 3/3s every turn is very good. This one, I guess, feels a little bit more mythic to me just because continuous creature building is pretty good. Even though we've seen it in green at rare as well, like with Ant Queen or something like that.
Yeah. I guess the thing I'd most compare it to probably is Master of the Wild Hunt as far as like a mythic that produces tokens. And then in that case, I think that Master of the Wild Hunt is way more superior to this card.
Yeah, because you don't have to pay the mana.
Invest any mana
and
into
you
it.
can fight with them. So
yeah.
That makes sense. That's a good point.
I think that Reach is like a little, I don't know. I hate to
Trample,
criticize
I would have preferred almost.
Trample should have definitely been, and you'll see why they didn't do Trample when we look at the next one, but yeah, this one, I just hate to be disappointed by these so badly. And this one actually really clearly makes it seem like they should have just done the exile ability as double the effect of the base ability. Yeah. Because
getting 2 beasts or a 6/6 or something.
Yeah, just getting 2 beasts would have been appropriate in my opinion. turning your dead 6/6 into 2/6, like into a 6/6 basically, two
Yeah.
3/3s. It seems like a great thing for a green mythic. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they just overworked this whole cycle, I feel like, and toned it way. They must be pulling way back with the next set too, if this is how far they're pulling back on mythics in this set.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on. This is the last of the spoilers we're going to do for this podcast. So we've got Avarice Amulet, 4 mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has vigilance, and at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. And when that equipped creature dies, target opponent gains control of Avarice Amulet, and this equips for 2. This is cool. I like this conceptually. It's tons of valuable effects that you get on the front end, but you better hope that creature doesn't die. This is another one where if you had a hexproof creature, you are in business with this card.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
I feel like I actually would have rather, and this was a personal design one, like this is one by Penny Arcade, and I actually don't really have a lot of problems with this card. I do feel like I would have liked it to be probably a 2-drop, like 1 to equip, or 1/1, and just skip all of the ability granting except for the at the beginning of your upkeep draw a card, and just make it about drawing cards and killing creatures.
I see that. It doesn't seem flavorfully right that an amulet would be making you have more attack
Stronger.
and be vigilant.
Stronger doesn't make any sense. And the hand, like, you can... I think what the picture is showing is the person who's taking the amulet from someone, so they killed them. That's why their hand is bloody.
Okay.
So it really still doesn't make sense why you're vigilant and +2/+0 when you can't even fend off an attacker who's trying to steal.
Maybe, you know what it is? It's probably a shout out to Lord of the Rings, sort of that makes you wickedly like vigilant and powerful, and you have like a lust for the Avarice Amulet.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like you've almost got like a fervor for it. So you like that's what's making you stronger. Your desire for the Avarice Amulet is making you stronger.
I think that then I and this is like nitpicking, but I think that the correct way to name it would have been Amulet of Avarice then. Because like that makes it sound like it actually has magical power and property to it, whereas Avarice Amulet just, I don't know. It doesn't really seem like it. It almost makes it seem like an amulet in homage to avarice. You know.
Oh, I see.
Like
I see what you're
that it
saying.
is
No. Okay, I see what you're saying. Like it was specifically made for greed or something like that.
Yeah, like to honor greed. Whereas if you say amulet of avarice, it actually sounds like you could evoke avarice into people, like make them have it for this thing, and then it would be more of that Lord of the Rings feel. I think
this seems like a real game flipper, so I like this one.
Yeah,
I
do like this card, though.
Very powerful card. There's going to be some real butthurt, sad people when they equip it on their guy. They lose their creature, and then they lose to their opponent, putting it on their creature and just going to town on them. Yeah. So
or
that's cool.
Dragon.
Yeah. Next, we've got Obelisk of Erd. What does Erd rhyme with? I can't quite think of anything.
Bird.
Bird.
Is the...
There you go. I was thinking turd. All right, let's see what this does. So it's got Convoke, which is already kind of weird. Are there a lot of artifacts that have Convoke?
No.
Or is this the only one?
No, this is the only one.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's a 6-mana artifact. It's rare with Convoke. And when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, and then creatures you control of the chosen type get +2/+2. So I was saying to Jake, what better hand could you have than a 6 kobold hand with Obelisk of Erd in it? Just drop your 6 kobolds, tap them all, play them, and you got 12 power on the board on turn 1. You don't have a hand, and you had a perfect hand, but
yeah,
still.
And it should be all over at that point. I don't know what your point. Oh, I know what they do. Force of will on your Obelisk of Erd.
And then you have your, but then you have 6 0/1s. So
army of kobolds. You just need to draw another Obelisk.
You need some way to get that coat of arms out.
Yeah.
So this card's actually kind of cool. I actually like this card, and I actually think it can see limited play. I believe, even if you have like 2 creatures of that type.
Yeah, I mean at 3 mana with like a 1, 2, and 3 drop of an appropriate type, you know. I would assume it would be very easy to do human.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, and in white, human or soldier should be very easy, actually.
Beast in green.
Yeah.
Those are some historical ones. Wizard in blue, you know.
I was just trying to think of like cheap tribes though, where you could actually get it out on turn 3.
Goblin. I mean, Goblin is definitely going to
Goblin is
benefit from
definitely,
this.
yeah,
So,
sure.
And then what's the one we're missing?
Oh, zombie.
Oh,
But,
yeah, zombie.
you
There
know,
go.
zombies, I don't know. They kind of are not giving zombies that much time in the limelight right now.
They, you know, they like to switch up the zombies.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're like, hey, let's give you 3 one-drop zombies. And it's like, oh, that's cool. And then sometimes they're like, all zombies are going to cost 3 mana, so you're never going
Yeah.
to play them. And then you're like,
Exactly.
okay, I guess I'm done with it.
Yeah.
So it's waxing and waning the power levels of zombies for sure. Overall, I do actually like that card. For limited, for constructed, I don't know yet. I mean, Convoke really makes me kind of scratch my head and make me think about it more, definitely. So I don't know. That could potentially. +2/+2 is nothing to scoff at. But then again, I guess I would rather just play the Dictate or Helliot or something like that. But
Yeah.
that's still
But then
it's
you're in white.
still good. True. Next we've got Perilous Vault. This is a mythic artifact for 4 mana. And it's got 5 and tap, exile it, exile all non-land permanents. So is this similar to something? It's got a Hedron on it, which I assume is this card is connected to Zendikar in some way.
The flavor text talks about how you can arrange the Hedrons on Zendikar to direct ley lines of energy. And then to disrupt one is to unleash devastation and chaos.
So similar cards to this, we've seen stuff like Nevin Rawl's Disc.
Yeah.
We've seen Scour Glass, which was also an artifact, but in white.
I would think that Oblivion Stone is probably the one that like most closely
to this,
represents it. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think this one is the best way to do it, where you don't have any other abilities on it. It's just everything is gone, you know.
Is this going to see constructed play because it's actual powerful effect, or is it too slow?
This is a way to equalize planeswalkers if they are having a problem with planeswalkers in future league or something like that. I would like them to push planeswalkers more, so this is a card that would allow them to do that and get rid of indestructible stuff. I don't know. I think that this is a good sideboard card at the very least.
Okay, we'll see. Next we've got Shield of the Avatar. It's a 1-drop rare equipment, and it costs 2 to equip. If a source would deal damage to equipped creature, prevent X of that damage, where X is the number of creatures you control. So it's actually kind of a narrow equipment effect, but I think it's playable. It's not an exciting rare, is it?
No, it's not.
I think that's its major shortcoming. It's not that it's a bad card. It's just I'd like to see it at uncommon.
Yeah. When you're thinking about an avatar, you're not thinking about that effect, at least.
Yeah.
I would have thought
getting
plus
more
X
powerful.
plus X, where X is equal to your life total would have been more appropriate.
Exactly. So that's kind of weird, actually. I guess I just assumed this card would have been just as good at uncommon.
Yeah.
But, okay.
You know,
put it at rare.
This card would have been really cool if it could also block any number of creatures or something.
Yeah. No, that would have made more sense, definitely. I think it just ultimately it needed one more thing to really kind of give
it rarity.
Yeah, stand out as a rare. Okay, so next we have the final soul of the cycle. We've got Soul of New Phyrexius. This is a 6-mana 6/6 trample. It's a mythic, of course. 5 mana activated ability, permanents you control gain indestructible, and then 5 exile it, and permanents you control gain indestructible. I actually kind of like this one. Being able to exile it to make your permanents indestructible, so it's anti-wrath even when it's in your graveyard. That's actually a pretty powerful effect.
Yeah, I overall like this card. I like the art. I like most of it, you know. I think that this card actually could have stood all by itself without the rest of the cycle and been much more impactful than any of the other cards.
Something I just noticed that's kind of weird about it. permanents you control gain indestructible, so it gets its own ability. It gets indestructible from its own activated ability. So how would it even end up in your graveyard? Because really the only way to deal with it is to make you sacrifice it.
Mana. If you didn't have 5 mana open,
Yeah,
like,
I guess
the
that's
turn
true.
to play it, they can just shatter it, you know.
Oh, okay. I guess that's true. It just, after looking at the 2 abilities, it's like, wait a second. Once you have the 5 mana to keep it indestructible, they have to exile it, and if they exile it, you're never going to get that second activated ability. So really, they have to make you sacrifice it, I guess, if you're leaving up the mana to keep it indestructible. It just seems...
But even 2 destroy effects, like cast one after the other, is enough to kill it, too. You know, 5 mana is not an easy thing to keep around. But you're right, like, this ability set in particular doesn't make that great of sense.
It doesn't make as much sense to me, just because it actually protects it. If it didn't protect itself with the indestructible, it would have actually made more sense to me. But the fact that it can protect itself, and then once it's in your graveyard protect, I just feel like, I don't know, it's not going to your graveyard that often if it has the ability to make itself indestructible.
Yeah, actually the really funny thing is that it's already got the, like, you can barely see it, but it's already got, like, Darksteel motes circling it, those little yellow energy
I see.
things. So that would already indicate that it had indestructible, like, just as a base, you know, in my opinion, you know.
Yeah.
Because that's how all Darksteel things were.
That's true. I didn't even realize that was Darksteel, but that's cool.
But this one, yeah, I do feel like this one, or Soul of Theros, either one of those could have stood alone without the rest of the cycle, and I wouldn't have had any problem with it. But I think the rest of the cycle actually just made these 2 cards, well, they look a lot better, but definitely made all those other cards look lackluster.
Finally, let's top it off, end it off here. We've got Sliver Hive. This is a rare land. It taps for colorless mana. It taps for a mana of any color, but you can only spend it on sliver spells. And then it's got 5 and tap. Put a 1/1 colorless sliver creature token onto the battlefield, and you can only activate that if you control the sliver. What do you think about this card? Very kind of weird, because are there any other slivers in...
Well, we haven't confirmed it, but, you know, who knows? They had slivers in the last core set. So if you want to do it, put them in 2 core sets in a row, and then, like, maybe somebody can make a sliver deck for 3
months. Yeah, that seems dumb.
Yeah, but I think that Sliver Hive is an awesome card. It would have been awesome to see it last time when they had the slivers out, and it's not going to be anywhere near as cool now if they don't have any slivers.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
In fact, like, not only will it be not cool, it'll be the lamest thing they've done in a long time.
They must have slivers then.
Yeah,
must.
or, like, at the very least have changelings or something. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how you can justify this card without having slivers. So if all they do is print, like Venser's Sliver or Metallic Sliver, I will be equally, like, pissed off, because those don't, no. Like,
it just seems like a waste of a... It seems like a waste of a rare land slot if you're just going to make a irrelevant creature type land.
Yeah, yeah. And the fact that it's rare is really what... Like, this card should have been saved for a commander product, and you should have put slivers into it.
Yeah.
If that's really what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Or there need to be slivers in this set. And since we haven't seen any...
There's gotta be.
If they just bring back the ones from M14, that'll be really disappointing too, though.
I'd still live with it. They gotta have slivers. I can't imagine.
The other thing I need to point out about this is that they went back to the original look of the slivers for this card.
Yeah, that's kind of funny too. It's like,
which is even more irritating for me. It actually, like, was the first thing I noticed, and it, like, made me laugh out loud, because I was like, you are so stupid for, like, the art direction on the old slivers, or on those...
The M14 ones.
Yeah, M14 slivers was so shitty that, like, I don't even know why you did it. And then now you're going back
to the original,
to the way that they should look, because everyone can recognize them as slivers that way.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
And I do want to say, if you had printed this card with those other slivers chilling out in these holes, I wouldn't have looked at this card and thought it was the same way. You know, like, I wouldn't have looked at it and thought it was cool. I'm glad that they did use the original slivers, but it just proves that they never should have changed it in the first place.
No, it's true. Well, I hate to leave it on that note, but that's going to be it for this episode. Like I said, we're not going to be back Sunday, but hopefully, I mean, we got to do a follow-up on M15 now. The fact that there's no slivers to be seen yet is just really weird.
It's too much of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I mean, we
Yeah.
got to almost assure you, like, there has to be a sliver in this set. There has to be. Because it's like, how could you
If there's a sliver, that will make me more upset than
Than if there was none.
Like, yeah, than if there are none.
Well,
And
because you can't even use the 5 and tap activated ability. Like, that should have at least given you a 1/1 sliver. Then it would have been a card that's like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. So then control can spit out slivers, but then it's like, nope, you got to have a sliver before you can use it.
It's like doubly stupid because unless you're printing full 5-color slivers, like one of each rarity, the middle ability doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So like this card could have not had that middle ability. And while I think it's cool that it does have it, unless they print colored slivers in this set in particular, that ability didn't even need to be there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it might as well have not produced colored mana or something and been like Ancient Ziggurat.
Yeah, where you can only use it to cast sliver spells.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So that's true. All right. Well, we got worked up a little bit on that last card, but that's all right. I think there was a lot learned today. Shout out to Hot Soup, the new card coming out. I won't even get Jake started on that one.
Yeah, please don't.
There is I recommend everybody look up the card Hot Soup because they're making a card called Hot Soup.
Might have the best flavor text ever, actually, too.
Or the dumbest, depending on how you feel
Coming
about
through.
Hot Soup. Hot Soup.
Ugh.
All right, guys. So we won't see you Sunday. I guess we'll see you in like a week and a half or something like that. So we'll see you then. Take it easy, everybody.